A very good morning to all of you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome everyone in this morning to the session on disaster risk reduction, loss and damage, and delivering climate justice. So, at the outset, I would like to sincerely thank the Center for Policy Dialogue for hosting a paper presentation session for the local and global young scholars. These young people are going to guide and shape the nation of, any region in the future. So this is really, good to see, the CPD hosted a conference for, a session for those young minds. So my name is Sakib bin Amin. I'm a professor in the Department of Economics at Northsouth University, and I'm also serving the role as a director of the accreditation project team at the Northsouth University. So it is a great honor for me to share this event where we'll delve deeply into the interrelationship between climate justice, disaster risk reduction, loss and damage. We would like to see how the role of how the importance of the climate justice in terms of mitigating the adverse consequences of different climate related issues. We are delighted to have a diverse group of presenters and scholars with us today, including Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and I'm really looking forward for a very productive session in this morning. So, as we know that climate change poses several economic, social, and environmental threat to the planet and the humanity we are facing at this moment in our regular activities. Climate-related disasters have nearly doubled in compared to the last 2 decades, and it is going to exacerbate the inequalities, loss, and damage within the countries, outside the countries, and more importantly, it is contributing the most to those countries who are the least emitters. So it's very important we come up with some sort of policy advices based on this sort of scholarly interactions. So we also know that climate justice emphasizes the need to address the loss and damage by acknowledging the disproportionate impact on vulnerable communities, particularly in the developing nations. So I am very much confident that we would come up with solution to ensure how we can actually help the vulnerable people to recover and try to give them some sort of understanding to develop resilience, providing climate justice which requires financial and technical support. So without further delay, it's our time to hear from our scholars and then get a chance to ask them questions and discuss after each presentation. I encourage all of you present being in this forum and also online to actively participate, ask questions, and make most of the networking opportunities available. So just a few housekeeping before I start the session. So each of the presenters will get 2 minutes to present their paper, and then actually we have 5 minutes for the question and answer. So I would like to invite Mr. Sobur Hossain, to present his paper. The title of his paper is Understanding Community Perceptions and Adaptation Responses to Climate Change in Rural Rangpur. Mr. Sobur, are you here? Okay, he's from online. Okay, so you can start. You have 8 minutes.
Can you hear me? Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone.
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead, please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I would like to thank our session chair, all the presenters, and the audience for joining today. Especially thanks to the Center for Policy Dialogue, CDP, for arranging such an amazing conference and giving us the opportunities to share our research paper. My name is Nisha Tasnim, and I am postgraduate student, Department of Sociology, Begum Rokeya University, Rangpur. Today, I am very happy to share our research title, Understanding Community Perception and Adaptation, Responses to Climate Change in Rural Rangpur. In this study, I'm really explored how rural communities perceived climate change and how they respond its impact on their daily lives. So, according to the Climate Reality Project 2023, global temperature has risen by 1.1 degree Celsius since pre-industrial era. Like Bangladesh faced severe climate risk with nearly 9 lakhs people displaced by 2050 and over 2 million people, 201,000. So the previous studies show the regional variation in climate awarenesses, like 21% people in Dhaka recognize climate change and compared to only 9% people in Sylhet.
Can you please move on to the full screen?
In Bangladesh perspective, in Bangladesh perspective, 85% of rural households depend on agriculture-based, so highly vulnerable and floods, droughts, and crop failure and extreme heats. So this is a very important part in Bangladesh perspective, and it's expected to decline about 7.4% annually by 2050. There are three major objectives of our research. First objective is to examine local perception regarding the causes of climate change. The second objective is that to identify climate change impacts as observed by rural communities. And third and final objective is to investigate adaptive practice adapted by rural household. The focus on the slide, our research area, we are purposefully selected two villages in Rangpur, actually, Panbari and Purbachil. So Purbachil is a river erosion prone area, while Panbari is vulnerable terms of crop production. So in this study, we adopted mixed method approach, like that combine qualitative and quantitative data, and also qualitative part involved a survey 102 rural households and conducted through face-to-face interview. And in April 2025, using random sampling and to ensure fair representation. For the qualitative method, we conducted 10 in-depth interviews, 2 key informative interviews, and 3 case study. So it's explore people's lived experience and contextual fact in depth interviews. And the data were analyzed both statistical tools for the qualitative and quantitative. And mainly qualitative approach focused on thematic analysis. So this is our findings. Please, now I would like to represent Sobur Khan, please.
Thank you, Nishat Tasnim. And I'm going to move our findings. Here is the socio-demographic information of the respondents and the age group, educational status, occupation, monthly household incomes, and land ownership information are here. So here is the perceived causes of climate change. Many rural households associated recent climatic changes with religious beliefs. For example, respondents said that now there is an excessive lightning, which is believed to be the result of people's sin, Allah's punishment for their wrongdoing. I think I have a mistake here. Oh, the major perceived causes of climate change as rural community blame that deforestation, excessive use of fossil fuels, industrial pollution, natural circles, cycles, and others. So here is the thematic analysis themes of perceived causes of climate change. Like we have identified 3 themes: human scene, vehicle, smoke, use of pesticide. The rural communities thought that those are the main causes of climate change, as the respondent said that when pesticides are used, fish die and insects also die, which causes climate change. So here is the observed climate impact by rural communities. Rural communities observed climate failure, poor drinking water, migration, loss of livelihood, jobs insecurity, food scarcity, increased heat stroke risk, and mental stress as well. Communities reported irregular rainfall, drought, frequent flooding. The respondent said that we used to cultivate almond rice. It used to rain on time. Now, even after 4 months, there is no rain and the land cracks open. Another respondent mentioned, flood have destroyed my house 3 times. Once I took shelter in a school, now I have lived at my sister's place. And we have seen that there are many health issues as well. So there are adaptive strategies. When it comes to coping and adaptation responses, most rural households rely on local and indigenous knowledge. Many participants describe religious or spiritual responses, such as praying to Allah during time of extreme heat, heavy rain, or lightning. Others have adopted practices solution like changes crop type, use hybrid seeds, raised homestead, shifted occupation, rainwater harvesting. And here the adaptive practices slide. We can see the respondents' quotes. So those are dua, prayer, food, flat shelter on high ground, hybrid rice, staying shade water. As I am talking about that, the respondents said that moving to a higher ground, school building during floods, or cultivating hybrid rice varieties that can survive underwater for a long periods. If we, here is the discussion part. We can see Uddin showed that rural Bangladeshis often frame climate change through religious and cultural beliefs rather than science. Similarly, that Atkinson 2023 highlighted that while agriculture remains the backbone of rural life, climate shocks are eroding productivity. My research confirms both parents in Rangpur, people are innovating with local strategies, but we still lack of access of scientific adaptation tools. So here is the conclusion. In short, we can say climate change is not just about rising temperature, it's about rising struggle in vulnerable communities. Adaptation must be local, cultural, and scientific working together, because the farmers of Rangpur climate change isn't debate, it's their reality life. So this research underscored the urgent need for climate training and scientific knowledge to enhance the capacity of the rural communities. Here is the data collection and time frame, and it has some picture also attached to the slide. And thank you all for listening my presentation.
Thank you very much for your excellent presentation to both of you. So just some few general, comments to enrich the quality of the paper. First of all, whenever we are doing research, it's very important to have a very, solid background behind this study. You need to provide the rationale why you are motivated to, focus on this study. So encourage you to go for the rationale of your study, and also, like, it's very important we can actually find out the novelty of the study. Like, I have not found, like, you have highlighted the novelty of the study, because whenever we are doing research, it's very, very important, to ensure the check the novelty. Otherwise, there is no justification for doing research. And I have seen, you address free research objectives. So also you have to highlight the research questions. So it's important, like, from every research paper we try to get one research question and try to answer the research question with some sort of, like, proper conclusion and understanding. And any good research should also have a literature review section. So if perhaps you can also, like, focus on the literature review to overall improve the quality of the paper. Otherwise, thank you. Is there any question?
Thank you for your presentation. I have just basic question on the methodology part. You have mentioned about the mixed method in your study. So would you please clarify how you have collected the data set that you have mentioned, random sampling? Would you please clarify about the random sampling method you have mentioned? So there are various sort of sampling method. So which sort of random sampling you have used?
I used simple random sampling.
Oh, is it possible to use simple random sampling here?
Sir, I can't hear you, sorry.
Okay. And I have another question, that is, in your discussion part, you have mentioned some of the perceived causes of climatic change and other issues. So is there any sort of theoretical framework or background information that you have used so that we can actually understand what are the basic criteria you have used to actually incorporate these variables? For example, you have used deforestation, excessive use of fossil fuels. So why you have used these sort of variables, not others? Is there any sort of specific theoretical understanding or background behind it?
So actually he's asking, why did you choose the selected variables in your study? Because there are a wide range of variables, but you have highlighted a few of the variables. So is there any justification behind choosing these particular variables? Is it backed up by any sort of a study? What is the rationale behind choosing these particular variables?
Sorry, sir, I can't hear you properly, sir, due to network.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for your presentation. Let us move on to the next presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Our next presentation will be on the restoring climate justice, bridging the finance gap for LDCs through the lens of CBDR. And this paper is going to be jointly presented by Shaima Akhtar and Kaji Celia Bashar from Bangladesh. Please go ahead.
So are you ready? Yes, sir.
You can start. So you have 8 minutes to present your work.
Good morning, distinguished guests and fellow presenters. I am Shaima Akhtar.
And I'm Kazi Celia Bashar.
We are the undergraduate student from the Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka. It is a privilege to speak before you today on restoring climate justice, bridging the finance gap for least developed countries through the lens of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, or in short, CBDR-RC. Climate change is the defining challenge of the 21st century, yet not all nations share its burdens equally. The LDCs contribute the least, barely a fraction, to global greenhouse gas emissions, but they face the gravest consequences. Their economies are fragile, their infrastructure limited, and their livelihoods, especially in agriculture and fisheries, are deeply climate sensitive. The principle of CBDR-RC recognizes that while all states share responsibility to protect the planet, developed nations bear greater historical and moral obligations due to their higher emissions and greater capabilities. This principle also implies that financial support for LDCs is not an act of charity, it is a form of climate debt and justice.
So first, we need to trace the origins of the principle of CBDR, which has emerged from a simple but powerful realization that while all nations share responsibility for protecting the planet, not all contributed equally to its degradation, nor do they have the same capacity to fix it. Principle 7 of the 1992 Rio Declaration recognizes this principle that developed countries bear greater responsibility due to their historic emissions and access to technology and finance. The UNFCCC institutionalized this principle by calling for climate action based on equity. These created a divide between developed and developing countries. The roots of CBDR go back to the 1960s and 70s when newly decolonized nations under the new international economic order demanded fairer participation and technology transfer. Milestones like the 1972 Stockholm Conference and 1987 Brundtland Report and the 1989 Nordvik Declaration reflected a growing belief that environmental responsibility must account for inequality and vulnerability. By the 1992 Rio Earth Summit, CBDR became a formal principle and the 1997 Kyoto Protocol operationalized it by imposing binding emissions targets on developed nations only. However, this system soon faced political strain. The 2009 Copenhagen Conference of the Parties marked a turning point. Developed countries committed $100 billion per year in climate finance, but the commitment remained voluntary and vague. The 2015 Paris Conference reaffirmed CBDR in light of national circumstances, which replaced the rigid divide with nationally determined contributions or indices. While more inclusive, this shift blurred accountability and shifted part of the burden toward emerging economies like China and India. At its heart, CBDR is a principle of climate justice. It recognizes that fairness, not uniformity, must guide climate action. Justice demands that those who contributed most to the problem should take the lead through emission cut, finance, and technology transfer, while allowing developing nations to grow sustainably. In this way, CBDR links moral fairness with environmental responsibility. For the LDCs, CBDR is not just a moral idea, but a safeguard. Without clear differentiation, climate funds flow to countries with higher investment returns rather than higher vulnerability. If properly implemented, CBDR can ensure grant-based finance and build capacity which are vital for LDCs like Bangladesh.
Let us now examine the reality of climate finance. Although the 100 billion annual pledge has been repeatedly renewed, actual disbursement hover between USD 83 to 89 billion annually. Even these figures are inflated by counting commercial loans and export credits. Another key imbalance lies between mitigation and adaptation. Globally, about 70 to 75% of climate finance goes to mitigation, renewable energy, clean infrastructure, and technology-heavy projects, while only 20 to 25% supports adaptation, which is vital for LDCs facing floods, droughts, and food insecurity. This imbalance means that countries where adaptation is a matter of survival remain chronically underfunded. LDCs also struggle with complex accreditation procedures, fiduciary requirements, that favor international agencies over national ones. Project approvals often take 3 to 5 years, consuming valuable time and resources while communities remain exposed. Transparency and governance pose additional hurdles, definitions vary, data is inconsistent, and donor reporting often exaggerates achievements. While CBDR promises justice, the current finance architecture still rewards efficiency and return on investment, not equity and survival. This global imbalance becomes even clearer when we look at experiences on the ground. Bangladesh offers a compelling case that reflects both progress and persistent challenges. As a low-lying delta nation contributing less than 0.5% of global emissions, it ranks among the world's most climate-vulnerable countries. Yet Bangladesh has emerged as a leader among LDCs, mobilizing around USD 256 million in Green Climate Fund project since 2015. Its flagship gender-responsive coastal adaptation project in Khulna and Satkhira has improved water security and livelihoods for over 120,000 people. placing women at the center of resilience. Domestically, the Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund 2009 and climate budget tagging across 25 ministries showcase strong accountability. When we compare Bangladesh with other least developed countries, the pattern becomes clearer. Nepal has received around USD 148 million for renewable energy and watershed management, but faces high transaction cost. Ethiopia secured USD 398 million for forestry and land resilience, yet struggles with disbursement delays and weak governance. Tuvalu, one of the most climate-threatened island states, obtained only USD 53 million. Bangladesh performs better, yet faces similar barriers, allocating 65 to adaptation, 25 to mitigation, and 10% to capacity building. It reverses the global trend, proving that financial flows remain misaligned with LDC's realities. Thus, Bangladesh stands as both a success story and a warning, showing progress yet revealing how fragile it remains under an inequitable global system.
Now the question arises, is the principle of CBDR still alive in today's global environmental framework? Today, CBDR functions more as a moral compass than a binding rule. Even though CBDR started as a principle of justice, the Paris framework moved away from equity-based obligations toward voluntary pledges and diluted accountability for developed ones. Financial promises remain vague, the $100 billion target is still unmet, and climate finance remains as loans or repackaged aids. So how can we restore the relevance of CBDR and make it work again? To revive CBDR, we need more than statements, we need action. Financial commitments should be binding, and there should be a fair balance between mitigation and adaptation. Funds like the Green Climate Fund should prioritize grants and make access simpler. Transparency, coordination, and gender-responsive budgeting are also needed to be addressed. Looking ahead, a clear roadmap can help make CBDR truly work in practice. In the short term, countries should focus on speeding up fund disbursement and expanding adaptation support for the most vulnerable. In the medium term, financial pledges must be enforceable and more grant-based. And in the long run, CBDR should stand as a permanent foundation of global climate governance under one equitable vision.
Ultimately, the global finance system stands at a critical crossroads. Frameworks like the Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Fund, and Paris Agreement exist, yet promises remain rhetorical. Bangladesh's experience shows both progress and failure, securing over $250 million through a process so slow that justice feels out of reach. Climate finance must return to its ethical roots, which is not generosity, but reparation for harm, and reviving CBDR in spirit and practice is essential to restore global climate justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a brilliant presentation. I really appreciate your effort. So before I will give you some general comments, I would like to ask my fellow colleagues if you have any questions. Adib, Tuhin.
Well done. Congratulations. I have two specific questions for you. First of all, I must not be clear whether you have any specific objectives or research questions to address. Like the focus was very broad, I felt. So could you clarify what lens you were to use to analyze in this paper? Second of all, you mentioned that the big commitment regarding climate finance has not been met. You mentioned about $1 billion is $100 billion, right? So what was the amount that has been fulfilled? Could you mention that as well?
Approximately 83 to 89 billion dollars were disbursed, but still they were just on paper only.
What do you mean by on paper?
Actually,
it did not reach the vulnerable community that we are trying to present actually. So LDCs like Bangladesh are mostly rely on adaptation and the finance that comes to adaptation, but most of the finance actually went to mitigation, which are mostly the middle income countries. So for countries like Bangladesh and other LDCs, the amount did not reach the what should I say, the marginalized community and the target population, I must say.
Having said that, what could Bangladesh do in order to get the maximum users of this? How can they actually ensure we are going to utilize all those, disbursed funding?
Okay, so For national level, Bangladesh can actually um, increase its institutional capacity and ensure cooperation among different parts of the government. And also it's not a matter of something which is only national base, I must say, because initiative was taken by since the new international economic order, which was during 1960s, which was a collective effort of the uh, developing countries or the underdeveloped countries. So Bangladesh alone may not be able to change a lot of things, but Bangladesh can ensure transparency within the country, that whatever amount comes to Bangladesh, it should be properly distributed. And if this is ensured, then we can think about the global level, then other coalitions and collective effort like the NIEO, as I mentioned, can ensure further progress in this regard. Thank you.
Very good.
Oh, thank you for a nice presentation. I have just very basic, simple question. That is, in your paper, you have mentioned some of the suggestions. That is, make climate finance legally binding, simplified fund access, and other sort of suggestions. So my question is that, do you think what are the how this can be implemented? Is there any sort of case study you have mentioned in your study, or any sort of example that we can actually drawn from any previous any other countries that we can actually understand? So this is the method we should follow. You have just make these sort of statements only. So how can we can actually reach the conclusion then these sort of recommendation actually can be implemented in real life?
So can I answer in Bangla?
Yes, you can.
সো এই যে সিবিডিআর যে প্রিন্সিপালটা, এটা তো নেওয়া হয়েছিল অনেক আগে, কিন্তু যেই ডেভেলপ কান্ট্রিজগুলো আছে তারা এই প্রিন্সিপালে একাত্মতা প্রকাশ করে, কিন্তু তারা হচ্ছে সেটা ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করে না। সো যেহেতু এটা একটা ভলান্টারি প্লেজেসের দিকে চলে যায়, সেক্ষেত্রে এটার ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশনটা হয় না। যদি আমরা এটাকে লিগালি বাইন্ডিং করতে পারি, তাহলে সেক্ষেত্রে ডেভেলপড কান্ট্রিজ বাধ্য এই জিনিসটাকে ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করতে। সো এটা আসলে স্পেসিফিক কেস স্টাডি বলবো না, বাট যেহেতু জিনিসটা কখনো লিগালি বাইন্ডিং হয় নাই, সো সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমরা না হওয়া পর্যন্ত তো বুঝতে পারবো না আসলে কতটুকু এফেক্টিভ হবে।
Okay, thank you very much for your okay, so once again I'm going to give you some sort of very general comments before. I would like to see you actually publish this paper in future based on our valuable comments. So once again, have you identified the novelty of this study? So it's very important you have identified the novelty. Your research should start from a novelty. Okay, and also as Tamim has mentioned, we have not seen actually the research questions. So identify the novelty, and based on that novelty come up with some sort of research objectives on questions, and then address those questions. Okay, and also a good literature, a good research should have backed up by solid literature review. Although you have mentioned a few of the literature in your given paper, however there is a missing of a separate literature review. So I would encourage you include a separate literature review, when you are going to further furnish the paper. And I have also seen that the abstract is too big, so try to limit the abstract within 150-200 words. It's very straightforward. The first couple of lines you can actually give a general statement, then identify the research questions, novelty, focus on the methodology, and then we need a very concrete policy, robust policy conclusion. This is how you can actually articulate the abstract. So if you incorporate all these comments, I think this is a very good paper. I appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, our next paper will be on the is Arisha Manzoor and Manzoor Inayat from Pakistan. Are you here? Online কারা কারা আছে কানেক্টেড?
আচ্ছা, ও জয়েন করতেছে। আচ্ছা, আসবে। কত নম্বর?
ও এখানে পেয়ে
8 নম্বর।
May I kindly ask Arisha Manjur and Mahanur Aniyat from Pakistan to present their paper on Pakistan space. It's a pathway to climate resilience. Can you hear me?
Sir, are we audible?
Yes, yes. Please go ahead.
Sir, Arisha was talking about the technical issue. So can we just give the presentation after the next one because
Yes,
she is
yes.
facing
Sure,
the
sure, sure.
technical issue.
No worries, please.
Couldn't open her camera.
Okay, okay.
Thank you,
Sure.
sir.
Sabina Sultana Tithi, are you here? Okay, then can I ask you to present a paper titled Legal Framework for Climate Finance and Governance in Bangladesh, a Comparative South Asian Perspective. You have 8 minutes to present a paper, okay?
আমরা তোকে বললাম ওদেরটা এখন নিয়ে নিব অনলাইনে ওদের সমস্যা হচ্ছে
টেকনিক্যাল ডিফিকাল্টিজ হচ্ছে ওই জায়গাটা পাকিস্তান থেকে
পাকিস্তানের বলে একটু পরে নিতে ওদের জন্য ভালো ওদেরটা নিয়ে
Okay, we are having some technical issues here, so I'm just checking whether Shibam Jaishal India, are you connected online? Shibam Jaishal?
Yeah, very good morning, sir. Am I
Very-
audible?
Yes, you're audible. Then may I ask you to present a paper titled Human Rights Economy of Climate Justice, a tripartite analysis of governance architectures through community resilience in India. So, Shibam, you have 8 minutes to present a paper. Then we have some questions and some general comments. Please go ahead.
A very good morning, distinguished panel members, dear colleagues who have joined us from different countries. As we all know that climate change has exposed a paradox of progress, which per se refers to the Eurocentric concept of development and progress. And therefore, as we grow more and more economically, we seem to diminish ecologically. So this phenomena of global climate change, it has affected each and every country, whether we talk about the rising levels of the sea or the oceans, or whether we talk about the quality of air, that is, that's a global phenomena that has deteriorated. So despite having grown economically, we see that there is a significant drop in the quality of environment in which we are living, if we talk in terms of ecological perspective. So the Bretton Woods system, which was created in the earlier part of the 20th century, or in the middle part of the 20th century, after the aftermath of the Great Wars, per se focused on economic development with respect to infrastructural development, whereas now the need is to ensure that the focus should shift towards climatic justice and towards a human-centric approach, or a right-based approach in terms of climate justice. So justice in the age of climate disruption, it cannot be achieved by environmental policy alone. Therefore, we need to rethink of economy as an institution where ethical constructs are at the forefront. Therefore, the concept of a human rights economy, which was introduced by the Office of the High Commissioner of Human
Shibam,
Rights.
are you
per
presenting your
se in
slides? Are you presenting? Is there any slides you're sharing?
Sir, are the slides not visible?
Not yet, actually. You can share your screen because we could not see the slides actually.
Uh,
If you can share a full screen, I think we can able to see the slides actually, Shivam.
so I believe there is some issue in sharing the slides.
Okay.
Can I proceed like
Okay,
with the
Shivam, go ahead.
presentation?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So basically, it brings us to the emerging paradigm with respect to the human rights economy, which was introduced per se by the Office of the High Commissioner or Human Rights in the earlier part of this decade. The concept of human rights economy was brought in basically to ensure that the focus of development should be on human rights. So human rights, rather than focusing on a siloed approach, the concept was to have a holistic approach with respect to development and to ensure that the economic prowess of a country can be maintained with respect, can be more human centric and more right centric in its construct. Therefore, the human right economy perspective, it challenges the traditional separation between economy and ethics, and it demands that the budget, taxation and the policies of a country must be not measured per se with respect to the GDP growth of that country, but also by their compliance with respect to the human rights principle. It also asserts that the economic decisions are moral decisions shaping who is protected and who is displaced and who needs to be heard. That brings us to the central argument or the central theme of this particular paper, that the human rights economy should be climate centric, and there needs to, and the climate justice needs to have a central place when we talk about the economic policy and the economic architecture of any given country. So the talking about the literature that I have reviewed, the roots of human rights economy, it stretches back to the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, 1947, which was basically envisioned as an economic security model, basically focusing on human entitlement and not on human privileges. Uh, Later on, various thinkers like Amartya Sen has given capabilities model, Martha Nugusalam has and Arjun Sengupta has reframed development as the expansion on human capabilities, wherein freedom and justice were the central economic outcomes. So these theories have per se played a crucial role in creating the grand norm with respect to the right-centric approach on economic development. However, the term human rights economy, it began crystallizing in the somewhere in the first part of this century, first decade of this century, when institutions like the UNDP and the Office of the Commissioner on Human Rights started to integrate right-based metrics into the economic policy evaluation. However, despite these international institutional developments that have taken place, countries primarily in the global south are yet to develop economic metrics and economic model wherein the operationalization of human rights economy in terms of not only the policy architecture but also in terms of the accountability mechanism still seems to be missing. So this brings us to the basically the central question that the study seeks to analyze, which is to explore how the governance architectures of India operationalizes the human rights economy, or whether it is still the principles have although been adopted in principle, but seems to be the operationalization part seems to be still missing when we talk about the climate justice framework. So the central question is how the human rights economy framework inform climate governance in India to strengthen community resilience and equitable adaptation. So the three to answer these the central theme or the central question, a tripartite analysis has been had been used in this particular research, and the first focuses on the human rights economy, which seeks through a doctrinal method. The research seeks to analyze how the normative foundations of equity, accountability, and participation are being incorporated within the framework of the Indian economic system when we talk about climatic justice. The second framework that has been used refers to the governance architecture, where the institutional schemes from right from the global institutional international level to the local levels, how the global architecture functions when we talk about the uh, policy architecture of India. And the third aspect is the community resilience aspect, wherein the lived agencies of the citizens are basically using the Sarvodaya model of which was given by Mahatma Gandhi primarily, which talks about the community participation and community development at the grassroots level, and how the international policies and international frameworks are adapted within the community resilience models of the community or individual communities that so as to operationalize the entire framework of human rights economy is also studied in this particular research. Since it is a doctrinal research, it basically the whole focus is to focus on these three key elements or the variables to see how the Indian economy through different frameworks or through different institutions try to adapt the human rights economy framework within its governance model. So when we talk about India, it is still in a phase of translation when we talk about the economic models, and it has not yet fully adapted to the international model on HRE. However, India provides a compelling landscape for studying this interplay because a few developments have taken place per se, the most primary being the National Action Plan on Climate Change and the State Action Plan, which embodies climate ambitions, but it rarely articulate right-based accountability mechanism. So the right-based accountability mechanism is still missing within the National Action Plan on Climate Change. So that is one of the key area where the translation has not fully materialized. The second aspect is the judicial intervention. So however, the judiciary in India has been quite proactive in interpreting the Article 21, which per se refers to the right to life. However, and as the judiciary has been very proactive in expanding the environmental protection, but this phenomena has also been more reactive rather than structural. So again, from that perspective, also a structural restructuring needs to be done when we talk about proactive measures or pragmatic efforts in terms of adapting towards a more right-based economic model or a right-based governance model. When we talk about grassroots innovations, there have been various community-centric innovations when we talk about the right-based governance. So the Orissa cyclone resilience model or the Sundarbans community-based adaptation methods are classic examples how the practical, how the communities at the grassroots levels, they have they have enacted not a very if we can say, they have adapted an informal model through which they are practicing the human rights economic aspects of climatic justice, where the not only the right to life but also the right to life live with dignity has been proactively incorporated at the grassroots level despite any structural or formal mechanism at the state or at the international at the state level. So the state has per se been more reactive, that when situations have arisen, catastrophic events have happened, state has reacted rather than taking proactive steps towards a right-based mechanism. So this brings us to the key argument, which is per se mentions that the climate justice
Shivam, may
cannot
I kindly
remain
ask you to
as
wrap
an
up your
environment.
presentation within next 2 minutes, please?
Sir, certainly, sir. So the research basically in this particular research I have tried to analyze the normative laws and the policies per se with respect to various National Green Tribunal case studies. Secondly, I've also tried to study the institutional mapping of the governance models and actors across the levels, that is the national, state, and at the grassroots or the district level. And thirdly, I have studied the case studies with respect to the community-centric models. I'll quickly go through the findings. The research basically revealed a deep asymmetry between India's climate justice rhetoric and the right-based implementation that of justice. While the institutional framework of governance, it still appears to be extensive, comprising the national missions, the state plans, and the judicial oversight. The integration of the human rights principle largely remains fragmented and normative in its approach. The first finding, if we can say, that the rights are recognized, the right-based approach is recognized in principle, but it is not fully operationalized at the present moment. India's environmental justice, especially Article 21, is a very comprehensive constitutional mechanism which has played a very crucial role in providing justice, equitable justice in terms of climatic justice. But a more right-driven approach and legislation needs to be drafted in that regards. Second finding is the decentralization gap which exists. Although the 73rd and the 74th constitutional amendments have envisioned Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies at the district or at the grassroots levels, however, climate decision making remains top heavy, and at the grassroots levels we still needs to have holistic policies, formal policies in terms of adaptation of equity based and right based climatic justice. The third finding is that the gender and social justice still remains peripheral. So most of the adaptation of the programs have fallen short of meeting the standards of gendered vulnerability when we talk about the agrarian societies at the grassroots levels. Although there are adequate number of legislations and ample of classic case studies wherein the legislation has tried to take into account the scheduled tribes and the coastal communities. However, they still face disproportionate exposure to the economic loss, and that needs to be addressed through legislation. So these apart from that, the fourth finding is that the community resilience demonstrates implicit justice, that despite the structural gaps, the grassroots innovations have emerged and are unrecognized architectures of climatic justice. So the grassroots models which are present in practice in various parts of India, and they have showed us the way that climatic justice need not be very formal. Even grassroots level efforts and measures can play a great amount, can play a major role in contributing towards the larger goal of climate or environmental justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shivam, for your brilliant presentation. I can say this is very articulated. You have provided us a slide where it is clearly mentioned, regarding the background and rationality of your study. You have provided the research design with some questions, hypothesis, aims, theoretical framework, and methodology, and also some sort of governance model. So in terms of the structure, it's a very good paper. I think it's an ongoing paper. Am I right? We're still working on this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, since the topic is still it's at a
Mm,
very nascent stage,
mm.
a lot of developments are still taking place. So I try to incorporate most of the changes.
Yes, within the South Asian region, we have one common problem. It's a good governance. So, what do you think? What could be the role of the governance in terms of protect the human rights, economy, or from the climate justice? Can you highlight us on that perspective? Because without ensuring good governance, without having strengthening the comprehensive institutional framework, it's very difficult to achieve those targets.
So if we talk about the South Asian region, or particularly our region, if we can say, I believe that yes, the institutional mechanisms are very important, but track 2 and track 2.5 diplomacy, wherein the community, or rather community, the uh, social participation can play a major role, right? Like I pointed in the last finding of the paper, the institutional mechanism still remains fragmented. But despite that fragmentation, at the grassroots levels, a lot of brilliant if I can say, policy innovations have taken place, wherein the community has come forward to address climate change with respect to their region. So, if we can have informal mechanism wherein these communities can be brought together, and the best practices of these communities and the innovative approaches of these communities can be shared and can spread across the region, I believe that can play a major role in strengthening our objective in achieving a more in achieving our goals towards climate justice in the region, apart from the institutional measures that are taken place by the various governments and the policy at the policy level.
Okay, excellent. Is there any question from the audience? From my colleague?
Congratulations. It was indeed a great presentation, and as earlier mentioned, it is very well structured presentation as well. I have just one question. I would love to have a very brief answer on that, not very explanatory. You mentioned about multi-layer governance architecture, and there are several layers you mentioned: local, state, national, global. So what do you think, based on your so far findings, that is there any, I think, ranking approach, like you need to target the global layer first, or do you need to go from the bottom up approach, like targeting the local one and then going for the global one, or do you think it has to be in parallel? Would you like to mention anything in that?
Sir, I believe that at the policy level development, like the policy development needs to be parallel. However, at the hierarchy should always be down to top, because like at the grassroots level, the problems of every community at every region is different from that of other region. Therefore, yes, if we can have a holistic policy at the top, and a generalized policy at the top and specific policy at the grassroots level, it will certainly help in finding more pragmatic solutions to the issue of climate change.
Okay, Shivam, thank you very much for your time being with us for the last few minutes. I wish you a very productive day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
May I kindly ask Ms. Sabrina Sultana Tithi from Bangladesh to present her paper. The title of the paper is Legal Frameworks for Climate Finance and Governance in Bangladesh, a Comparative South Asian Perspective. Tithi, you have 8 minutes to showcase your work, and then we have some questions and comments to enrich your paper. এখন বলো।
Thank you everyone for this opportunity. I'm Sabrina Sultan Tithi. I completed my LLB degree from Jahangirnagar University and currently pursuing my LLM degree from Jahangirnagar University. My second presenter unfortunately cannot be present at this moment because of her family emergency. So I'll be presenting my paper. So our paper critically analyzes how Bangladesh's climate finance system operates within domestic law and compares it with other South Asian countries to identify pathways for stronger governance and reform. So South Asia is one of the world's most climate vulnerable regions, facing floods, like cyclones and sea level rise. Bangladesh, located on the world's largest delta, stands at the front line. Its flood security, health and livelihood are all at risk. The rising demand for adaptation and migration finance makes legal framework crucial. They determine how funds are mobilized, allocated and monitored transparently. So in short, strong climate governance is not optional, it is the foundation for resilience. So our research, our paper's objectives are analyze Bangladesh's domestic laws and fiscal structure for climate finance, assess how these aligns with United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and Paris Agreement obligations, compare Bangladesh's approach with those of India, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and then propose reforms that strengthen governance and enable regional cooperation. So our research question is, how effective are Bangladesh's existing legal and institutional frameworks are in governing climate finance, and how they do compare with other South Asian countries in ensuring transparency, accountability and equitable climate governance. So we used a mixed method legal approach combining doctrinal and comparative legal research, reviewing statutes, court cases and institutional treaties. Primarily source are analyzing, examining national acts, strategies and judicial rules, and secondary syntheses are drawing on reports from Asian Development Banks, then United Nations Development Program and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So legal mapping and comparative frameworks are to evaluate both law on the books and law in practice. So these gave us a holistic picture of climate finance governance across South Asia's legal framework. So we also used United Nations climate, United Nations UNFCCC's in legal context and Paris Agreement's legal context as well. And the key findings are the Green Climate Fund and government Global Environment Facility and Adaptation Fund from today's international climate finance architecture. When it comes to Bangladesh's domestic framework, Bangladesh has been a regional leader by creating its own climate institution. The BCCAP, Bangladesh Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan 2009 was the first comprehensive plan organized around 6 pillars, including flood security, infrastructure and low carbon development. Then the Climate Change Trust Act 2010 gave legal statute to the Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund, financed directly from the national budget. Then a complementary climate change resilience fund was created for donor support. Together they reflect Bangladesh's effort to balance domestic ownership with international cooperation. Now, to mainstream climate spending, Bangladesh introduced the climate fiscal framework. It integrates climate concerns into the national budget through climate budget tagging and the climate expenditure tracking framework. Ministries now classify spending as climate related and report annually to Parliament. More recently, policies encourage private sectors engagement via green bonds and Sharia complement sukuk. Yet challenges remain, especially in measuring outcomes and ensuring the budget funds create real impact on the ground. So we have also compared or mentioned some judicial engagements. The Supreme Court of Bangladesh has been a pioneer in environmental rights. In Dr. Muhammad Farooq versus Bangladesh 1996, the court expanded the constitutional right to life to include the right to a healthy environment. And later, Bela versus Bangladesh 2010 reaffirmed the court's authority to act on ecological degradation. These rulings build a foundation for future climate-related litigation, ensuring the government enact or misuse of funds can held accountable under constitutional law. Finally, we have showed a comparison between South Asian perspective. So looking beyond Bangladesh, we compared 5 South Asian countries. India, where National Action Plans on Climate Change 2008 and Draft Climate Finance Taxonomy 2025 with strong judicial activism is showed. Then Nepal has Climate Budget Code 2013 and constitutional right to clear environment. Then Bhutan has carbon neutral mandate enriched in its constitution. Then Pakistan has Climate Change Act 2017, but it has institutional overlap as well. And lastly, Sri Lanka has a draft Climate Act still pending and amid fragmented allocated. So collectively, these examples highlights regional innovation, but also shared coordination and accountability gaps. So there are also some common challenges in South Asia. So some are poor institutional coordination, then difficulty accessing global funds like GFC due to complex procedure, weak transparency and public oversight, and emergency justice gaps in cross-border resource management. So we argue that the region must shift from strong planning on paper to robust and equitable legal governance in practice. Strengthened institutions, then transparent fiscal system and regional legal cooperation can help South Asia move from vulnerability to resilience. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Titi, for your nice presentation. We have a very good insights regarding the legal frameworks for climate finance and governance in Bangladesh. And is there any question from the audience? Tamim, Adi, Babena? Any question? Tamim?
I'd like to ask a few, just a couple of questions. Before that, two insights. First of all, I think I was seeing the papers. In the paper, there were very good points have identified, but you didn't mention in your presentation. So there was some, I think, mismatch what I expected to hear and what you were saying. Anyways, so a common suggestion as for earlier researcher as well that when you say legal framework, it's a very well studied area, right? Everyone who is in legal background do research on this area. Yes. So it's very important to establish your novelty of the study, yes, and also establish what the scope of your study, because this law is a big thing. You cannot review the whole law within a paper. So you need to scope your research within a specific lanes. My question is just, I want to hear something new, so that's why I'm asking from my interest, own interest. Did you find any examples, good examples that Bangladesh legal framework has that some other South Asian country don't have? I mean, usually we do the opposite, like they have this one and we don't have this.
Yeah.
So did you find any counter examples where we have this strong thing within our law, but it isn't the case for the other South Asian country? Any such thing you would like to mention?
Well, not directly, but indirectly, Bangladesh has some like Bangladesh Scouts and other organizations has some movements like to clean up certain areas, or they are following SDG goals. So like this, I think Bangladesh is progressing from other countries like India and all.
Okay.
Have you found any similarities in terms of the legal frameworks between Bangladesh and other similar countries within the region? Are they having a similar sort of legal frameworks, or there are some sort of variations?
There are variations, like Bhutan has carbon carbon Bhutan has constitutional carbon neutrality, which we don't have yet. So I think Bangladesh can follow that.
Okay, and another question that came to my mind, like in the South Asian region, Bangladesh and other countries, we have one common problem, like lack of monitoring mechanism.
Yes,
So in absence of lack of monitoring mechanism, what do you think? How effective will this legal framework in terms of achieving those, like climate justice?
No, I don't think like I think we need to strengthen our monitoring mechanism, and we need to build. We need to train human resources more. We need to have more trained human resources, and improving inter-ministerial coordination, and setting up clear mandate, and ensuring consisting funds will help us to get climate finance.
Excellent. I think you need to highlight more on this
Yes,
aspect, like
yes.
and Tamim has already mentioned in terms of the overall structure. Try to put more emphasis on the novelty part,
Yes.
literature review, and then I think it will be a very good paper. Thank you very much. Nice
you.
work. May I kindly request Ms. Fazira Asif from, oh sorry, Arisha Manzoor, are you here with us? Arisha and Mahanur.
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Okay, so may I ask you to present a paper? I think you are
Yes,
ready
sir, we
now.
are ready.
Are you ready to present the paper now?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead. You have 8 to 10 minutes to present your paper. The floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Arisha Manzoor, MPhil Scholar of International Relations at National Defense University, Islamabad. My co-author is Panur Inayat. She is also MPhil Scholar of IR at NDU. First of all, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to the organizers of this conference. Thank you for providing this platform to bring together researchers, academicians, and practitioners committed to climate action. It's an honor for us to be here presenting Pakistan. Slides will be shared by me, and Mahnur is going to present. So I'm turning off my camera to show the slides. Over to you, Mahnur.
Thank you, Arisha. Good morning to all the distinguished scholars, researchers, and the guests. I'm honored that we have an opportunity at this platform. Before I begin, I would like to highlight a very significant key event that is taking place today. Pakistan is launching its first hyperspectral satellite.
Mahanur, are you presenting your slides? Are you sharing
Yes,
anything?
Arisha
Because
is
we could not see any slide actually.
Sir, Arisha
Now
is
we
sharing
can
her
see.
slides.
Now we can see. Okay, go ahead, please.
This marks a major milestone for the Pakistan space program, and the HS-1 satellite represents that how countries like Pakistan is now using the advanced space-based technology for the climate mitigation. Coming toward the presentation, our topic is titled is Pakistan Space Renaissance, a pathway toward the climate resilience. The outline section This is the outline that we will be presenting, and coming now toward the introduction. So actually, Pakistan was the most early space-faring nation which started its journey back in the early 1960s, much earlier than many of the developing nations. Then in 1961, Pakistan established the SPARCO, the Space and the Upper Atmospheric Research Committee, which was later upgraded to the Constitution in 1987. This marks a Pakistan's serious commitment toward the space research and the development. Then during the early years, Pakistan also received the technical assistance from the countries like United States, Russia, Britain, even from the China, and the Badr satellite series that were launched in the 1990s and 2001. These were the early milestones that laid the foundation of the Pakistan space program. In the recent years, there has been kind of revival or renaissance in the Pakistan space sector that is primarily motivated by the national pride and the development needs. The government also introduced the National Space Vision 2047 and the National Space Policy in 2024 that basically aim to strengthen the international cooperation while also promoting the indigenous development. Importantly, Pakistan focuses only on the peaceful use of space, including in the areas like the communication, weather forecasting, disaster management, and the urban planning, remote sensing, and many other areas, all of which support the national development and security in non-military ways. The problem statement of our research is that Pakistan is the 5th most vulnerable country and the 27th least prepared country according to the German Watch Climate Risk Index. And the prominent effects of the climate change in the Pakistan are the droughts, glacial lake outbursts, the irregular patterns of the monsoon season, cloud busting, and the extreme heat waves. So basically, which are the threats to the human security and to the whole ecosystem in the country. There are the advancement in the global space climate monitoring, but still, like there is a Pakistan use of technology for the disaster management and for the environmental resilience is still limited. So basically, this research aims to address the critical gap that is in order to understand that how Pakistan emerging space renaissance can be strategically leveraged for the pre-disaster and the climate mitigation. The research gap basically highlights that there is a limited literature on the use of space technology in addressing Pakistan's climate crisis, and thus this study fulfills the gap by examining how Pakistan's space renaissance influences its environmental policies and climate resilience. There is no literature available on the latest development of the satellites like EO, PRSC-1, and the relation with the climate resilience indicators. Coming toward the research question that basically our research paper addresses, the central research question guiding the inquiry is how can Pakistan's space capabilities be strategically leveraged to enhance the climate action and environmental sustainability. The significance and scope of this research paper is in multiple dimensions, especially in the policy relevance, which will support the Pakistan's climate governance by highlighting that how national space assets can be used for the climate mitigation, and it can strengthen the national disaster management, early warning, and disaster mapping system. Its significance is also in the academic domain because it will fill a major literature gap by linking the space technology with the climate resilience through the theoretical lens of technological determinism. Talking about the future research aspects, this paper also we can say that open up a new research direction on the intersection of space technology and the climate security and the technological evolution. Talking about the scope of the study, this study actually focuses on how Pakistan's emerging use of space technology for the climate resilience that emphasize satellite-based monitoring and early warning system. So in this context, Pakistan can be also can emerge as a strong full case study for the as a role model, as a case study for the other global South countries too that are vulnerable toward the climate change. The research methodology. The research methodology of this paper is basically exploratory research because the intersection of space technology and the climate adaptation in Pakistan is relatively new and it is under research. So this study aims to generate the insights by identifying the linkage and to propose the future of the research direction rather than testing a predetermined hypothesis. The primary data, it includes both primary data and secondary data. Talking about the primary data, it is from the official documents, from the policy papers, strategic framework, the press releases, and the statements issued by the Pakistan National Disaster Management Authority, by the SPARCO, and the Ministry of Climate Change, which also draws an official communication from the Pakistan's Foreign Office to capture the policy narratives on space and climate cooperation. While the secondary data is obtained from the already peer-reviewed journal articles, books, reports by the different think tanks from the national and even from the international one. Themes like the space-enabled early warning system, satellites-based agriculture resilience, and the global cooperation in space for climate action. This can be emerged from the analysis, and coding consistency was also maintained to ensure the reliability across the different data sets. The theory that is known as technological determinism, basically, it acts as a primary driver of the social and the institutional transformation. So in this context, the Pakistan renewed investment in a space technology is analyzed as a determinant of progress in the climate adaptation. The technological determinism, which is basically a theoretical framework of our research paper, this study employs the theoretical lens of a technological determinism that's basically originated in during the Cold War era, which argues on the relationship between technology and politics, that how these two domains are interlinked. And during this era, the nuclear and the space technologies were the shaping global politics all around the world. Thus, in the context of Pakistan's space revival can be seen through the lens of the technological determinism, because the Space Vision 2047 is a guiding map for the Pakistan in order to achieve the space technology for a peaceful uses. And the Space Vision 2047 has a mission statement that clearly says that building, launching, operating, communication, and remote sensing, weather and navigation satellites, and developing their applications and spin-off technology for the national security and the economic development by 2047. So we can say that Pakistan has adopted a technological determinism to achieve these goals. Pakistan has also, in a collaboration with the other space-faring nations like the US, Russia, and the China in the revival phase, in the Pakistan space program to continue survive all the obstacles and moving forward to achieve its goals. Pakistan's space renaissance, which basically I have already discussed in the introduction part in the detail. So because of limited time, I will not go in a detail, but actually these are presenting that how the space journey of the Pakistan evolved and how it transformed into the arrival phase. Like I already discussed, the Pakistan space program series started with the Badr satellite series in the 1990 and 2001. Then in the 2011, Pakistan also provided the National Space Program of 2047 and also launched the Pakistan satellite, which is basically a communication satellite with the help of Chinese collaboration. Then the PRSS-1 was launched in the 2018. It was actually the first Earth observation satellite that has a limited role in the climate monitoring and the disaster management. Then the Pakistan Technology Evolution Satellite, which is an indigenous developed satellite for the remote sensing. Then on the May, next slide. Then on the May 2024, Pakistan also launched another satellite, PARCSAT-MM1. Back in January 2025, Pakistan also launched the electro-optical satellite. This were also for the Earth observation purposes, but it provides a high-resolution image for the applications, particularly for the agriculture, urban planning, and disaster management. Another remote sensing satellite, PRSC-1, was launched in the July 2025. Now recently, like SPARCO is launching another first hyperspectral satellite today in October 2025, which is designed to promote a data for agriculture monitoring and mineral exploration in the ecosystem satellites. We also talk about the Pakistan Space Vision 2047, that is a guiding map for the Pakistan space program. And in January 2024, I already discussed that Pakistan also publishes first national space policy that basically serves as a framework for the country's space efforts. This is I will not go in a detail the national space policy for Pakistan, but if in a nutshell, if I can say that basically this provides this policy provides the direction for the future research endeavors and aims to achieve the socio-economic development and enhance the national security through the use of space technology. It is basically a beacon of hope that shows that Pakistan can achieve the SDGs and the objectives of national vision of 2025 to 2047. This strategic plan actually aims to improve the citizens' living standard through the robust space programs, and the policy also emphasizes on the self-reliance in the technology sector that strengthens the international cooperation aligning with the national strategic vision. Pakistan climate challenges, I will not also go into detail due to the limited time, but in short, like according to the German Greenwash Index, before the 2022 and 23 floods, Pakistan was ranked the fifth
Manur,
most
may I kindly
vulnerable in the
ask you to wrap up within the next 2 minutes, please?
Okay. Pakistan is the fifth most vulnerable country, the 27th least prepared country, but the 2022 and 23 floods made the Pakistan the #1 most affected country in the climate risk index, according to the German Watch Climate Risk Index of 2025 report. Role of space technology in climate mitigation, that how space technology can be used in order to mitigate the climate challenges, and the Pakistan space assets and their climate elements. So basically, Pakistan's space assets represent significant progress, but their contributions toward the climate change mitigation still remains underdeveloped. So it emphasizes on an ongoing map between the technical capabilities and the practical implications. Case study of the agriculture. I have taken the case study of agriculture sector because agriculture is the backbone of any country's GDP, particularly of the developing nations like Pakistan, and the GDP is highly vulnerable toward the climate challenges. Recently, in this slide, I want to highlight that recently a Pakistan student, Mehroush Umar, that led her team to victory in the AI for Good Incubator 2025, and she created the AgriGod AI platform, which help basically small farmers how they can use the AI and satellite imagery for the climate resilience framing. So these models can be emerged as a case study by implementing this in the agriculture sector toward the climate resilience in the developing nations. These are the maps which are taken from the SPARCO and the NDMS data, which basically shows the villages and infrastructure that are flooded recently. Another map is about the SPARCO use space data for the track floods and the progression in the recession, especially around the river Chenab, and it provides a crucial critical data for the insights, especially for the disaster management, disaster management authorities in order to plan recovery, assess and damage, and predict flood behavior. This is another map coming toward the analysis, which is based on the findings of the research paper that Pakistan's journey has evolved from the symbolism to the climate utility. These are the early satellites which we have discussed, but they have a limited role in the climate resilience. So these satellites now supports early warning system, disaster assessment, and deforestation planning through data which still can be centralized. In agriculture, which is the Pakistan's most climate sensitive sector, the use of AI and the satellites like SAR, synthetic aperture radar system, can help monitor fresh drops, crops, and the glaciers and different cloud outbursts. Then talking about the indigenous technology of satellites that PAK TS1, which highlights the Pakistan technological growth, and it also reduced the dependence on the foreign data. Theoretically, under the technological determinism, like this, advances are transforming climate governance. To maximize this impact, the space data must be decentralized in order to integrate it with the AI and then link it with the NDMA system for the stronger climate adaptation. These are the policy recommendations, which basically they highlights that how space-related subjects should be added to all educational levels to enhance students' interest in these fields. Then these focused centers will also offer the avenue for the mentorship, resource, and networking opportunities, especially by investing in the human capital development. then the pooling resources and the skill training sector in this domain will help to develop the more efficient and disaster management and the agricultural planning and the other water resource management techniques which are vital toward the regions toward the climate resilience. In a nutshell, I can say that 21st century space is no longer about the exploration, it is about the survival, and Pakistan is using the space-based technology to address the environmental concerns like the water management and climate change mitigation, but still highlight high resolution satellites imagery and remote sensing data from the Pakistan satellite can be useful for disaster management and early warning preparedness, but there is still limitation towards the mitigation of climate, especially in the field of climate resilience. These are the references, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arisha and Mahanur, for your excellent presentation and also very well written paper. Um,
Thank you,
very,
sir.
very impressive. Actually, we have learned many technical initiatives by Pakistan to think about the climate resilience issue and how to mitigate the adverse consequences of the global warming. So it's a very well discussed paper. So is there any question from my colleagues?
Sir, I want to say something. Sir?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sir. Basically, we take a Pakistan. Pakistan is a case study in our research paper because it is better to start talking about the climate solution from your home country. So. So we were aiming the taking case study of a Pakistan can be evolve as a strong case study for the other developing nations of the global south and of the South Asian and the Asian parts of a country, because they are also vulnerable toward the climate resilience. So it can be act as a strong example as a case study for the other climate toward the climate resilience of other nations too.
Thank you. I think it was an very interesting topic. I think that's one thing to learn from for me as well. But I would just like to give you some insights. Perhaps if there is time, you can reply on some of them. First of all, it's a very well written paper, very important informations are there, but I think it would be more useful if you could use some tables as well. It's very well descriptive, just you didn't use any tables there. So sometimes it could be, difficult to keep concentration and for, see the summary of the findings that you have. Second of all, you mentioned all the impact side, but I would like to see some of the risk factors as well, given that if you talk about these technologies in South Asia, of course, there are fiscal deficit that every country is facing. So obviously, you have to mention the risks, probably a cost-benefit analysis, whether if you take the money from social protection or maybe some education, health, these are money you are investing in the space. So do you think that's gonna bring that kind of expected benefits out of that? And lastly, I think you mentioned about your research questions. Perhaps you could link the research questions to your introduction. I think one thing we should remember, the research question should not be self-imposing. It should be coming from the literature, like what are the areas literature have addressed, and the area the research gap exists there, you should have the research questions. Other than that, everything I think was great. Thank you.
Okay, just one last question. I'm just wondering because are the innovation or these sort of space capabilities effectively developing the resilience capacity of the vulnerable people within the Pakistan? Because we can see the efforts, but at the same time we also need to know the effectiveness of all these efforts, because you have mentioned that you would like to focus on this case study so that other country can get some sort of highlights from your study. Is there any highlights on that, the effectiveness of these initiatives in terms of developing the resilience capacity of the marginalized or vulnerable people within Pakistan?
Yes, sir. They are the highlights, but they are the effectiveness of this satellites program. But especially if we look into closer, then these are particularly for after the in the post preparedness, post disaster management, flood mapping, and flood mapping, the dot mapping of the different sectors. But basically, we we focused here on the that how Pakistan's using the space technology can be leveraged for the early warning disaster systems, especially the use of satellites like SAR, which are very effective in the early warning system. They are the effectiveness, but especially in the post disaster management preparedness that guides in toward the policy recommendations and toward the mapping of the affected satellite mapping of the affected areas.
Okay, Manu, very well done. Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. May I now
Excuse me,
ask?
sir. I would like to.
Sorry.
I would like to answer the earlier comment, if you allow. I'll be very brief.
Could you answer your question in 1 minute, because we're kind of running out
Yes,
of
yes,
time,
I'll
so
take
maybe in
1
short.
minute.
These
Yeah.
were just some sort of feedback, so
Yes.
you can just light up on in 1 minute, okay?
Okay, yeah. So you mentioned about the fiscal thing. So Pakistan National Space Policy also guides about this. We are focusing on public-private partnerships to fill that gap that we are facing, the financial gap that we had already faced. So public-private partnership is the solution. And secondly, we are focusing on spreading awareness about importance of the space technologies for socio-economic developments. So people do not get like agitated by this, that the money that should be flowing in like welfare sector is going to space sector. So this is the solution of it that is already given in Pakistan's national space policy. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. May I now ask Shia Gupta from India to present her paper on the mangrove restoration as a climate solution, economic pathways for tourism, disaster risk reduction, and poverty alleviation in Indonesia and Philippines. Shia, you have 8 minutes to present your paper. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Sir, I'm just presenting the PPT. Sir, is the PPT visible?
Yes, we can see. Please go ahead.
Just a second, sir. I'm just turning my camera on. Yes, sir. So, the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. So, this is a very famous quote by Robert Swan, which suits the topic and our research. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Sia, and I'm from Christ University, Bangalore. So, moving ahead with this topic. So, today I stand here with my friends to explore a natural hero that is the that is your mangroves that protects the that are not only just trees, they bodyguard, are the breadwinners, and they are the barriers of hope for our economy. So Indonesia and Philippines. So why we are choosing this topic is that they together nearly host one third of the world mangroves, and yet these nations they are vulnerable to floods, typhoons, and poverty in coastal regions, which is a major challenge and which is a major highlight here. And there has been a decline in mangrove forest due to urbanization, aquaculture, and pollution. So moving on further, the three main objectives or the three main areas we are focusing is to analyze the impact of mangrove restoration on supporting tourism and fisheries, on reducing disaster vulnerability, and promoting poverty alleviation. So these are our research questions that how does mangrove restoration enhance tourism and fisheries sector in Indonesia and Philippines, and does mangrove actually reduce flood damages and support poverty reduction? For our research, we have analyzed 1995 to 2020 data, where we have taken data from Global Mangrove Watch, CGMFC 21, FAO, and World Bank data to analyze and collect data. And we have used regression analysis. We have used basically we have created models where we are analyzing the impact of tourism arrivals and everything to analyze tourism impact, flood affected people, to understand disaster resilience, and we have basically analyzed the poverty rates to understand the economic resilience of the country. Now handing it over to my friend Rose.
the data analysis part mainly includes the construction of three models in which we were trying to analyze socioeconomic impact, the the restoration capacity of mangroves, etc. Model 1 postulates that log of tourism arrivals as a function of log of mangrove extent, GDP per capita, and air passengers. The R-square value we obtained here was 0.77, which indicates a very strong model fit. The overall interpretation is that the mangrove restoration enhances tourism and resilience, with Indonesia and Philippines benefiting, although flood or poverty impacts need better data to confirm. Priya, can you please change the slide?
Sure. Is it visible, model 2?
Yes, it is visible now. The second model, we were trying to postulate the relationship that flood affected people or flood damages is related to log of mangrove extent, GDP per capita, and tourism arrivals. Here, the R-square value we obtained was 0.10, which indicates a very weak model fit. But the coefficients support the claim that mangroves help in reducing flood risk. But the weak results may be due to data limitations, which emphasizes the need for better data on mangrove benefits for resilience in Indonesia and Philippines. Next slide, please. In the third model, we were trying to analyze socioeconomic impacts, mainly poverty as a function of log of tourism arrivals, log of flood damages, and employment in agriculture sector. Here, the R-square value we obtained was 0.17, which once again suggests a very weak model fit. The main finding from this model is that even though the model fit was very weak, it was highly statistically significant. And also there is a negative relationship between tourism receipts and poverty. This strongly supports the idea that economic opportunities like tourism helps in reducing poverty. Next slide, please. Here is the synthesis of results from all the three models that we had used. The first model suggests that mangroves lead to an increase in tourism. The second model suggests that mangroves also help in reducing flood risk. The third model suggests that tourism helps in reducing poverty, and flood risk increases poverty. So this chain of three models tells a very neat story. Protecting mangroves is not just an environmental issue. It's also about supporting tourism revenue and reducing social vulnerability. Now handing over to my colleague Ayush.
Now we turn our attention from regression results to the raw visual data. So if you look at the graphs for the Indonesia in this slide, and in Indonesia, and for the next slide, Philippines. So you see a striking pattern. Tourism arrivals have been on a clear long-term upward trajectory in both nations, showing significant economic growth potential. Contrast with this, the mangrove extent which while relatively stable in both countries over the study period, shows a slight overall decline in Indonesia and a flat trend in the Philippines. Can you change the slide?
You have 2 minutes
so
to go.
Yeah, our finding that mangrove significantly boost tourism suggests that protecting and restoring this habitat is a key to sustainably this growth. So next, let's examine the disaster resistance. Previous slide, please. Yeah, disaster resilience expect on for both the countries. So yellow line indicates the yellow line is for the flood affected area, and a yellow line is for the mangrove, and the gray line is for the flood affected area. So while the model 2 had a weak statistically fit, the visualization often suggests an inverse relationship. When the mangrove extent is higher, the number of people affected by the floods tend to be lower or less volatile, particularly in Indonesia. This visually supports the hypothesis that mangroves acts as a crucial nature buffers against climate impacts. Next slide. So yeah, based on our findings, we propose a strategic set of policy recommendations, mainly focused on connection. We must actively link mangrove restoration with ecotourism to create sustainably jobs and income. This requires strengthening coordination between environmental and tourism agencies. Crucially, we recommend promoting innovating financial mechanisms such as public-private funding and reducing the value of the blue carbon credit. Finally, these efforts must be formally integrated into national climate and disaster resilience policy to ensure long-term effectiveness. Next slide. Yeah. In conclusion, the full weight of our study confirms that mangrove restoration is a powerful climate solution. We found a robust positive relationship between mangroves and tourism expansions. Furthermore, while needing better data, the evidence suggests mangroves effectively lower the risk of flooding. Importantly, tourism acts as a powerful lever for social economic development, decreasing poverty, through employment generations. Restoring mangroves thus offers compounded positive social, economic, and ecological effects, making policy connection and regional cooperation absolutely essential for a resilient and a prosperous future. Next slide. So here are the references we refer to, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. I really appreciate. So I have a few questions in my mind. The first one, so why did you choose Indonesia and Philippines as your case study? The second question, in your regression analysis, did you take any control variables? Like in the slides, we have not seen any control variables. And since you are focusing on the time series analysis, did you check the stationary properties and also the co-integration analysis? So if you can highlight on those aspects, it would be really appreciated.
So, basically, the reason behind choosing Indonesia and Philippines is that recently, if you see, mangrove restoration has gained significant, acknowledgement recently, because all the economies, they are focusing on your carbon pricing policy and everything. So, mangrove restoration was seen as a potential way that we can solve the problem. And also, if you see in 2024, there was one campaign launched by Indonesia and Philippines, where Indonesia, they were targeting around 6 lakh mangrove plantation, and on the other hand, Philippines was also planning to do the same, and they had set a certain target which they plan to achieve. So this targeting these two, particularly these countries, say, because they have a very huge potential impact. If we analyze these two countries, we can have a very wide like idea about how we can plan out for all other nations as well. So starting point, we have seen
Okay, I
these
think
two
we got the answer.
areas as the best.
Can I go to the next question, please?
So
regarding the econometric analysis, have you taken any control variables?
yes, sir, we have. Yes, Suzy, you can say.
Actually, we have not taken any control variables as such, because we were focusing on simple regression analysis using OLS models, where we had dependent variables and independent variables. But the particular effect of some variables were not controlled as such, because we are not advanced in that sense.
Okay.
And the third question that you asked, it was actually a panel data that we had tried to model, sir. So since there were two countries,
even in the
Indonesia,
panel
Philippines,
analysis,
and
you
the
have to check the stationary properties. Anyways, it's a good attempt. Like in order to publish your paper, like in a work in a reputed journal, I think it's very important to adopt the latest, incorporate the latest methodology available in the time series or panel analysis. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
May I now ask? No, Fazira Asif from Pakistan to present the paper Embedding Gender Equity in Pakistan's Climate Adaptation Policies, a Health System Perspective. Fazira, are you there?
Yes, I am there.
The time is yours. Please try to wrap up your presentation within 8 minutes, time bound.
Yes, sure.
Can you
Hello,
please show the
everyone,
slides?
this is Fajira.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but we can see the slides.
Okay. I'm sharing the slides. Can you guys see the slides?
Yes, we can see now.
So everyone, this is Fajira. I'm from Pakistan. I am CAS and GCSP alumni and independent researcher, right now associated with Trial Consultants. So the topic I am discussing is embedding gender equity in Pakistan climate adaptation policies. It's a healthcare system analysis from the perspective of healthcare justice. So this is the content of my presentation. I will start with introduction, a little bit research, the background of the research, the conceptual framework, and then I will move towards the findings and recommendations. So in introduction, I would like to explain the what is actually the problem. I will explain the context and what are the challenges in the climate perspective Pakistan is facing. So basically, Pakistan is very vulnerable towards climate change effects. And there are, in 2022, there were 33 million people who are affected by its impacts. Women particularly face a compounding risks, and it's not like there is no policies. The policies do exist. However, they lack a gap, and this research particularly focuses on the recognition of those gaps. So, as I said earlier, the objective of my research is to examine the Pakistan's national adaptation ecosystem, and it focuses on three particular criteria, and I will further explain in the conceptual framework where these particular criteria come from. And the criteria I am going to discuss is recognition, financial commitments, and women healthcare recognition, visibility, and protection. The research question of my paper will be how are gendered health risks are recognized, one, and what mechanisms are in place to address them. Two, and are women healthcare workers' needs and roles acknowledged? This is a little bit of an overview through the literature. It's about how the situation on climate, particularly in Pakistan, how climate is impacting the country, how the maternal and reproductive health is being impacted, how much pregnancies are being impacted by climate change. Pakistan has a low ND gain, and it has a high vulnerability, low readiness mechanisms in place, and particularly there are 5.2 per healthcare workers, nurses available to 10,000 people in Pakistan. So, and in the situation of crisis, obviously it's going to worsen. So this is the figure on Pakistan vulnerability, and this is the ND gain ranking, which places vulnerability high and readiness low. So conceptual framework, moving to the conceptual framework, how I came up with three criteria. It's through the conceptual framework. And particularly, I focused on studying the frameworks and international views by the international organizations, UNDP, WHO. So, and I came up with the three criteria of lens. So, how for the gender justice, climate adaptation is obviously the matter of justice, right? And in Pakistan, gender inequalities, along with the lack of healthcare infrastructures, to make a healthcare system adaptive of climate change impact, it is important to have such climate justice lens, right? So while doing so, we have three criteria. One is recognition of gender differentiated health vulnerabilities. 2 is institutional financial support for inclusive health adaptation. The third one is protection and visibility of women healthcare workers. So all in all, this will focus the entire this framework anchors the entire analysis, right? So we will move from the policy language to operational accountability. This is the research design. I will explain it very shortly. I focuses on a policy discourse analysis and examine how health, gender, and adaptation are framed in these policies. The policies that I studied was National Adaptation Plan, NAP 2023, and Framework for Implementation of Climate Change Policy 2014 to 2030. Right? So I studied these two policies, and along these policies, there was certain previews available on the, and I gained attained this, from the websites, UNCC's website. So how the analysis is being done, it's through the rubric to evaluate these. I will share the rationale for that. This is the rubric that I use. So particularly if there is the mention of the gender and health, then so if there is no mention, it's going to be 0. If there is the generic rhetorical mention, it's going to be, I will frame it as a tokenistic mention. And then the policy will have 1 scoring. And if there is a particular recognition, then it's partial commitment. It shows the partial commitment, of course, and it's going to have score 0. And if I see the policy where I saw the policy embeds the particular problem, then the scoring will be 3. So this is my research process. I attained the document, then I annotate the document, then there is the mini guide, the quad guide that I used to score the policies on those 3 criteria. Then I cross-checked 10% for the internal consistency, and then I interpret the results. So there is the limitations, and there is the to avoid the generalization, I particularly use only 2 policies. And I also want to mention the analysis only reflects the policy intent. It does not reflect the implementation outcomes. Now let's move on to the finding. Finding number 1. On the criteria 1, which is recognition of gender differentiated health vulnerabilities. There was the mention of women and health related challenges in both of the policies in the NAP and the framework. However, it lacks the particularly disaggregated data. So because of that, both of them, here it is, I gave the scoring framework and NAP both 2 because there is a substantive recognition. Now, in the second criteria, we have protection and visibility of women healthcare workers. Institutional financial commitment. So in the institutional financial commitment, the names of the institutions particularly are mentioned for the adaptation measures, of course, with the financial, there were financial commitments. However, in these 2, there was no mention of indicators for this. For the particular disaggregated data was not used. There was no indicators, and there is no accountability mechanisms mentioned, right? In both of them. However, there is a centralized MOCC and EC available. I mean, in Pakistan after the 18th Amendment, but again, there is no centralized accountability institution, right? Which is why I gave the framework tokenistic mention 1 and NAP substantive but partial commitment 2. Now moving on to 3, it talks about the protection visibility of women healthcare workers. And this one, when I was reading the policy documents, the healthcare workers, only one document mentions the healthcare workers, but however, there is no recognition and there is no protection framework available. There is no visibility even in mandates or in their presentation. So moving on to their rankings, we have framework, which is obviously it's absent, as I mentioned, and in NAB in 2023 it was mentioned. So when we I also analyzed a cross-cutting analysis, and I recognized data gaps and governance gaps. How there's data gaps, as I mentioned again, no disaggregated sex disaggregated indicators, right? And equity remains invisible, and policies. As I mentioned, there's policy centralized federal roles and no clear accountability mechanisms.
Fazira, can you please wrap up within the next 2 minutes, please?
Yes, sure. So this is the overall ranking. The framework recognizes it has early recognition, but it has weak institutionalization, and the NAB, it has improved intent, but the governance clarity, it lacks here. So based on my findings and the gaps that I recognized, I came up with the recommendations. So first gap recognized is data invisibility and weak measurement, for which to mitigate this, institutionalized and sex disaggregated health indicators are important. The second is weak financial commitment. So to deal with this, we need to create dedicated budget lines for health adaptation. Third is the workforce invisibility, and we need to recognize women healthcare workers in adaptation. Fourth one is weak decentralization. So as I said, we need a national provincial reporting system, which is centralized. Fifth one is limited decision-making powers. We need to mandate women representation in adaptation committees. We need to have technical like groups and planning bodies for women representation is being given. So yeah, these are my recommendations.
Excellent, very well organized presentation, very structured. I really appreciate your effort. I think my colleagues may have some questions, so before I'll ask them, I have a very quick question. Do Pakistan has any sort of like national document on the gender equity?
So particularly on gender equity, we have obviously we have acts available, but particularly on gender equity as such, we don't have any. But we do recognize UN's frameworks, gender equity frameworks. We are the part of that.
Okay, thank you. I think my colleague has a question. Please, we are looking for a very brief answer at this stage.
Sure.
Okay, so I have a question that did you provide any case study or any other evidence of any other country that ensures gender equity in their adaptation policies? Any comparison that you provided in your paper? Thank you.
Particularly, the paper focuses only on discourse analysis of two policies, right? So there is no case study. I did not want to overstate the research approach of this paper. So I did not include any case study because I think it will oversaturate the paper. I wanted it to be very specific and I wanted it to be very reliable in case. And yes, the scope is very limited because there is only two policies that are in place in Pakistan. But I did not want to overstate the research approach, so I keep it very limited.
Tamim?
Yeah.
Thank you.
This
I
is the answer
think
from my
you,
side.
Fazira, you have done an excellent work. I think it really is a good paper. Just few insight and one short question. I think you have addressed most of the things that we would like to ask. First of all, I was reading your executive summary, but you did not mention any findings in the executive summary, only the method and the background. So maybe if you would like to fine tune the paper for the audience, you could add another para on the findings, summarizing the findings at least. And second
Okay.
of all, thank you for choosing this topic. I think whenever we're talking about any issues, the gender dimension must be there. So my question would be to you, maybe you can answer in very short. If you haven't already addressed this, I'm not sure. You can just briefly say that what are the unique challenges that Pakistan face, did you think, in terms of addressing gender equity in climate policies, especially in comparison to other South Asian countries? Because whenever we talk about gender, I feel every South Asian countries have some common issues, but I think within that, I feel, in the individual countries has some unique features as well. So did you find any unique characteristics that persist in Pakistan that doesn't necessarily effective for other South Asian countries?
So when it comes to in comparison with other South Asian countries, I would say I'm not really well versed in other South Asian countries. What I can talk about is Pakistan only at this moment. And in Pakistan particularly, what the problems we are facing is extremely I don't think so it's very unique. I think it's very much common in other South Asian countries as well. Please let me know if I am wrong. Like for instance, in the remote areas in Sindh, we are facing high rates in child marriages. Like the parents literally they sell their kids to get food. So these are, I think these are the challenges. Please correct me if I am wrong, because I don't have that on other South Asian countries. And these are the challenges that I feel like other South Asian countries are also facing. So it's very much, I think, common. And this is why it's very important to learn from each other. Particularly in South Asia, we need to have these discussions very often to learn from the policies of each other, what framework we are that are in place, how we are actually coming up with the solutions.
Thank you, Fazil. I think I got your answer. Thank you. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Hira Salim from Pakistan, are you here? I was checking. Hira?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Can you please present your paper? You have 8 minutes. So the title of the paper, Modeling Forest Fire Risks Using Machine Learning and Satellite Remote Sensing. Please try to wrap up within 8 minutes. We have some sort of time constraint. Okay. Time is yours. Please share your slides.
Is it visible?
Yes, we can see your slide.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Hira from Pakistan. I have done masters in GIS and remote sensing from NUS. So I am going to present the topic modeling forest fire risk using machine learning and satellite remote sensing. Here are the contents of my presentation that includes the introduction part, materials and methods, results and conclusions. Background. So forests play a vital role in reducing the greenhouse gases emissions as trees absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So by acting as a sink, trees absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during photosynthesis and store it in their biomass. So by acting as a carbon sinks, forests help mitigate the effects of climate change by reducing the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Forests also contribute to sustainable water management, protect the soil health, and support the biodiversity. Despite their ecological and environmental importance, forests face numerous threats, including the man-made and the natural forest. Since 2017, there has been a noticeable rise in the increase in the forest fires due to the climate change. So several technologies and new methods have been proposed to predict and detect the forest fires. There is a trend of artificial intelligence. So the trend is towards the integrating of artificial intelligence to automate the prediction and detection of fire occurrences. So the availability of extensive remote sensing data and advancement in machine learning provide new opportunities for data-driven wildfire prediction. Here is the basic summary of my literature review that I have been conducted. So these are the researchers. Mishra in 2024 focuses the forest fire susceptibility in India. They used the modest data and 19 fire driver factors that include the climatic, topographical, and other drivers. And they use the machine learning algorithms, SVM, support vector machine, and random forest. In their findings, they recognize that the random forest outperform the support vector machine in fire zone identification. Mahmood in 2024 identified the forest severity regions using in Chinhosa pine forest. They utilized the Landsat 9 imagery and using the normalized burn ratio and denormalized burn ratio analysis in their research. They studied different drivers and they identified that random forest achieved the highest accuracy as compared to the extreme gradient boosting. Suzuki in 2023, they identified the forest fire susceptibility regions in northern Morocco. They used the GIS techniques and other they use the GIS in 10 casual and factors, including the NDVI, slope, wind, and other climatic factors. They utilize the 3 machine learning algorithms: extreme gradient boosting, random forest, and support vector machine. In their findings, they identified that extreme gradient boosting outperformed the other models. Next, problem statement. So, due to the climate change and the human-induced climate change, forest fires in Pakistan are becoming more frequent and intense due to the several climatic and other factors, which causes serious environmental, economic, and other risks. The regions that include California and Australia have been extensively studied in terms of forest fires, but there is a lack of localized research addressing the Pakistan and especially Ahmedabad, which is a region which is a study area of my research work that lacks the unique climatic, topographical, and ecological conditions which limits the effectiveness of fire prediction and mitigation efforts. So research gap in my study was that the most existing models are either region specific and they lack the unique Pakistan unique climatic, topographical, and ecological conditions. The socioeconomic dimensions of fire vulnerability and exposure and the integration of remote sensing data with adaptive machine learning algorithms tailored to local environmental dynamics. So the objectives of my research are to identify and analyze the key environmental factors driving forest occurrences in Ahmedabad district in the Pakistan and to predict the forest fire probability using climatic and remote sensing data integrated with machine learning techniques. Study area. So my study area is Ahmedabad, which is a small district in the northern region of the Pakistan. It has a population, it has a total area of 1967 kilometers square, and it is a popular tourist hub. Many tourists visited this region. It has a dense forest cover of 55,000 hectares, which is almost 43.3% of the available land. And most common variety of trees found here include the spruce, cheer, and deodar, which is a major contributor to the forest fires, and the average annual temperature is 18 degrees and the average annual rainfall is 1262 millimeter. And the distribution of forest land is categorized into 3 categories: reserved forest, Guzara, and cantonment. Reserved forests are under the government control and Guzara forests are used by the public for their resources. Datasets used. So the datasets I use in my research work are the 5 incident points which I acquired from the Weed Satellite firm's website and the Forest Fire Department. Meteorological data that include the temperature, precipitation, humidity, and wind speed from the Pakistan Meteorological Department, remote sensing data, slope, elevation aspect, and NDVI from the USGS, and human activity data, distance to roads and distance to settlements from the OpenStreet Maps and Google Open Buildings, and forest cover data from the Ministry of Climate Change. This is the methodology flowchart of my research work that different data, satellite meteorological data, human activity, and historical data. When acquired, we do the data pre-processing, in which feature extraction and selection was performed. Then we identified the forest fire driving factors. Then we developed a model in which we divide the data into training and validation data set. Once the model was developed and model was evaluated using the evaluation matrices accuracy, precision, recall, and the model was validated, and at the end the output was the forest fire probability maps of my region methodology. So different data once collected in that includes the historical fire data, human activity data, meteorological data, and satellite data are gathered to capture the environmental and human influences on fire. Once the raw data was collected, then it undergoes the pre-processing, in which we identified the different important driving factors of forest fires that we will use next in our model development. Once the data was identified, then data is cleaned and split into training and validation sets, and then model development and validation, in which the machine learning model is trained to identify forest fire driving factors and generate the forest fire probability maps, followed by model evaluation and validation. These are the maps of my study area region. On the left side, this is the forest fire inventory point map. The red points describe the forest fire points in that region, and on the right, this is the forest cover map that represents the scrub forest, moist temperate forest, subalpine forest, and chill pine forest. These are the maps of elevation and slope. These maps represent the elevation and slope in terms of the fire incidents. So we can say that the higher elevation and steeper slopes contribute to more forest fire incidents. This map represents the aspect map, and aspect map represents a different direction. So in our region, southern facing aspect or the direction receive more sun exposure, so there is a greater chances of forest fire incidents at that region. But in our case, we can see that the northern side represents the more percentage of forest fire incident. This is because due to the several reasons that once the coniferous trees are they are present, the prevailing winds and the human activity in that region contribute to more forest fires. These maps represent the human activity. We identified the distance to roads and distance to population map, and we put the fire incidents on that locations to see that how it contributes to the fire incidents. So we can say that distance to roads, there is a smaller distance to road, there is a more fire incident points, and similarly distance to population, smaller distance to population contributes to more fire incidents.
Mahira, could you please finish within next 2 minutes, please?
Oh, okay. This map represents the temperature and the humidity map, and they also represents the forest fire incident map. Next, the exploratory data analysis, in which we perform the different techniques of feature extraction and selection, correlation analysis, transformation, and temperature and combination interaction terms, in which we perform the different techniques to normalize our data. As we can see that U-joint transformation, box-first transformation, and we perform the interactive terms to see how the combined terms affect the forest fire incidents. Then we use 3 machine learning algorithms: random forest, logistic regression, and XGBoost classifier to build our model. We divide our data into 80% training and 20% data sets. Next, the results. These graphs represents the annual and the monthly fire occurrences. We can see that in this graph in 2016 year, there is a greater number of fire incidents due to the maximum temperature and lower precipitation. And similarly, in monthly graphs, we can see that June represents the higher number of incident points due to the greater temperature. So this is the heat map of the variables, in which we gives us the direction and strength of the relationship between the variables. We can see that the maximum daily temperature and average daily relative humidity, similarly FF, fine film moisture content, and the relative humidity represent a strong correlation. So To balance this, we have to drop some features which shows the strong correlation among the variables. Multicollinearity statistics will be performed to check the correlation among the variables. So VIF score and variance inflation factor and tolerance values, the value greater than 10 and the tolerance value lower than 0.1 are factors are identified which are highlighted in this. So we have to drop these features. Three features would be dropped: the average daily air temperature, wind speed, and NDY temperature interaction. Next, once the data once the features were identified, next we build the model. The data set is split in 20% training and 20% testing. We have to build the model. This table represents the model performance comparison, in which we can see that the random forest achieve the highest values in terms of accuracy, precision, and recall. So we can see that the random forest performed best in our region. We in this slide, we use the shape framework to identify how each factor contributes to the model prediction. So the red value, it contributes positively and the blue value contributes negatively. In this chart, we can see
Hira,
that the
can you please
chill
wrap
pine.
up? We're running short of time.
Oh, okay. So next, this graph represents the feature importance in terms of percentages. Next, we have to generate and validate the forest fire probability maps. We identified 2 months, May and June 2022, to build the forest fire probability maps. These are the maps that I generated for my research work, and these maps represent the different models: random forest attributes and logistic regression. To validate these maps, we use the fire density analysis, in which we have to check the fire points of May in June in that specific area. These value, the higher value in the extremely high region represents its validity. Similarly, lower value in lower regions represents its validity. Next, we set the fire points on that region to see that how well it is well validated or not. So we can see that our probability maps are validated from fire density analysis techniques. So this is the conclusion of my research work, in which I used 3 models for my forest fire risk prediction. SHAPE analysis highlighted the critical risk factors, including forest type, temperature, and fine fuel moisture core. Next, fire susceptibility maps were generated and validated against actual fire incident data. These findings offer a valuable foundation for early warning system and targeted forest fire management. So these are the references. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hira, for your excellent presentation. We thoroughly enjoyed, reading your paper and also listening to you. Very well done. Because I can see you have, included the most recent literature in your research as well as the recent technologies. So I think, this paper has potential, and if you further furnish, that will be published in a very good reputed journal. So my colleague has one question. Please, briefly reply his query.
Yeah, I have just one little question. I'll explain it shortly. We have gone through your paper in detail, so don't worry. We read the paper. So just one question: do you think if as you have a specific research area for your forecasting, do you think if you expand the forecast area or maybe including the whole Pakistan as your study area, would be the result the same, or do you think it would have a different outcome for them? Do you think that has an impact on your result as well?
Yes, I can use the same methodology for the broader area, but similarly, we have to use the different data sets for that, and the climatic, especially climatic conditions of the whole area are different as compared to my study area. But the results would be, we can use in this, for this particular area to the whole broader region. So we can utilize the same techniques for that also.
Okay, thank you very much, Hira.
Thank you.
Have a
you
nice
so much.
day. So today's last presentation will be presented by Nishta Chaturvedi. Are you here? Nishta Chaturvedi from India. So if she is not here, now it's time for listen to our judges. Oh, Hira, can you please actually stop the sharing your screen? Hira?
Okay, sir. I stopped the
Thank you.
screen.
So
thank you so much.
May I kindly ask Miss Amina Khatun, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Economics from Bangladesh University Professionals, to share her valuable, thoughts in today's discussion. Amina, please.
Okay. Respectable chair, honorable judges, and the participants, and my dear audience, Assalamu alaikum. I am extremely happy and overwhelmed to join this program, particularly for three reasons. First, as I am into the climate and environment related research activities, so I feel this is the platform where I can meet the experts and I can learn about the new ideas and methodologies. Currently working on this subject area. And secondly, this is the first climate week observed in this country. So being a part of it is very prestigious. And thirdly, the program is organized by Center for Policy Dialogue. And I started my career, my first job was at Center for Policy Dialogue. So this provokes some nostalgia as well as a sense of gratitude. Okay. In today's session, this is on disaster risk reduction, loss and damages, and delivering climate justice. And we listen to a very insightful and thought-provoking research outcomes today, presented by very talented researchers from our home and neighboring countries like India and Pakistan. And through the presentations and discussion, we have learned about so many new things in this area, like how the community's perception, we learned about the community's perception regarding climate change and participation in building resilience, then human rights and gendered aspect of gender dimension of climate justice, then impact and scope of climate finance as well as importance of good governance, and the use of cutting edge technology like use of space technology and machine learning system in predicting the disaster, in minimizing the disaster risk. So we could see that the new researchers brought fresh perspectives and collaboration and innovative ideas and interdisciplinary approaches to tackle all the climate problems. And we believe that their ability to leverage the cutting edge technology and using the collaboration and focus on equity and sustainability can develop effective solutions in this that can actually mitigate the climate crisis we are facing all over the world. So thank you very much for the new scholars for bringing up so many new things in this area. And my good wishes are always with you. And thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Amina, for your valuable remarks. May I now ask Mr. Mohammad Adib Ahmed, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, Bangladesh University Professionals, for sharing his valuable thoughts.
Thank you, sir. So, assalamu alaikum, dear audience. So, first of all, I want to convey my heartiest thanks to CPD for arranging such a fantastic event. So in this stream 3, we have actually got paper from 3 specific countries: Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. So in the context of, if we just want to understand what are the key themes, I will just share my own thoughts about the presentation that I've already gone through, and I found very much interesting findings and innovative ideas from the young scholars. So first of all, I just want to say that the session actually presented as rich and multidimensional exploration of climate policy, governance, technology, and justice in South Asia. And each paper approached the climate challenge from a distinct but complementary lens, revealing both progress and persisting gaps. First of all, if I want to just focus on the paper related to Bangladesh of Shaima Akhtar and Sabina Sultana Tithi, they have actually effectively highlighted the moral and institutional dimensions of climate justice. The discussion on common but differentiated responsibilities expose the financing inequities that continue to disadvantage least developed countries, where the comparative legal analysis, the paper that has been done by Sabina Sultana Tithi, actually also position Bangladesh as a regional leader in climate finance innovation, so though still struggling with enforcement and coordination. So I'll suggest both of the scholars, both of the papers, to actually gone through further to do more works in those areas, and I think those papers would have a very bright future. Okay. And in the context of Pakistan, we have found out that the paper related to Hira Salim, titled Modeling for Forest Risk, Fire Risk Using Machine Learning and Satellite Remote Sensing, and also the paper related to Pakistan Space Renaissance, A Pathway to Climate Resilience by Arish Manzoor and Mahnur Inayat. Both of the papers really focus on technological studies. On one, machine learning for forest fire prediction, another one is Pakistan space-based climate initiatives, studied for their originality and practical value. Both illustrated how science and technology can be converted into climate risk into resilience when paired with institutional commitment and data-driven governance. And finally, the paper also that has been presented from Fajir Asif from Pakistan. This paper actually brought the discussion to human level, examining gender inequity in Pakistan health adoption policies, and also it revealed the critical gap between recognition and implementation, particularly the invisibility of women health workers with adaptation framework, and rightly argued for measurable, financed, and gender responsive policy mechanisms. And in the context of India, we have got 3 presenters, though only 2 presenters have presented their presentation. From Simam Javiswal, he has tried to examine the human rights economy of climate justice, a tripartite analysis of governance, architecture, stroke community resilience in India. But it is still ongoing work, so I can actually can't comment fully about the future. But I think in future the author will actually try to finalize the paper with full methodological framework. And in the paper of Shia Gupta, Mangrove Restoration as a Climate Solution, Economic Pathways for Tourism, Disaster Risk Reduction and Poverty Elevation in Indonesia and Philippines, the author has used empirical method in this study, but I'll suggest to actually recheck their methodology and try to use this method in proper mechanism to get a proper solution and pragmatic solutions regarding this paper. So across all the papers, I have observed 3 consistent themes: justice, integration, and conclusion. Justice in fair financing, integration of law and technology, and inclusion of most vulnerable as active agents in adaptation. Most importantly, this session actually displayed strong conceptual clarity, cross-sectoral relevance, and regional insight. The authors demonstrated academic depth while maintaining policy practicality, a combination rare and valuable. And finally, as a judge, I commend the presenters for advancing both the intellectual and moral frontiers of climate discourse. The next step, as several of those workers suggest, is to translate recognition into measurable action where equity, evidence, and innovation truly align. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Adip, for your valuable comments. Now I'd like to request Mr. Tamim Ahmed, Senior Research Associate from CPD, to share his valuable comments on our presentation today. Tamim, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will be not taking a lot of time. I understand we all are hungry. So thank you, all of you, for presenting your papers. Actually, when I was invited for this program, I mean, more than of judging your papers, I was interested to learn from you. So obviously, one of the interesting facts that I noticed today from all the papers, we touched across the globe. I mean, if you see, there are study targeting a root level agriculturists who are being affected by climate change, and another paper has touched the space utilization for mitigating climate change. So you see, from root level to top level, we have covered everywhere. So that was the fantastic part, and also there was gender as well. I was very happy to see one paper was on gender. So overall, all the methods you have used, I think there was also diversity in the use of method as well. There was legal reviews, there was machine learning, there was qualitative assessing. So I think overall it was an interesting experience for me to hear from you as well. I'm not sure whether when the result will be there, which paper would be the standing out, but I can tell you, like, at least we're discussing that most of your papers were already in very good shape to be the best paper in any kind of this kind of conference. So I think this is a big achievement for you, whoever put so much effort for this conducting this research. And obviously, I would like to thank all the organizers as well who have helped us in smoothly running this program without any big hassles. So all the very best to all of you. I would like to see all these papers that are in draft stage, that are already in good shape, go for publication for good journal. That paper which are already published, I would like to request you to go for further beyond scoping your study and integrate more dimension and then paper publish that again. And of course, most important part, communicate the findings, because here in this kind of conference, we sit here to exchange knowledge, not only at local but also at regional level. We want to hear the experience of Pakistan, India, and other South Asian countries. At the same time, we would like to communicate our learning from Bangladesh case as well. So attend this kind of conferences, present your paper, don't worry about the quality of it, just have the courage, and obviously it will help you to build intellectual caliber. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamim. Is there any question from the floor to
Any
our
question,
participants?
query, or recommendation?
You remain very patient throughout the morning. Is there any question? Okay, so I think we're almost done for today's session. So it was a really great experience to be present in this very, important session on the disaster risk reduction, loss and damage, and delivering and climate justice. And Tamim has just mentioned, when you involve in research, it doesn't matter whether you're a senior researcher or junior researcher, we all are colleagues. It's a two-way, learning communication. So we have learned so many things today that we can also enrich our knowledge, and we can also find some way of, doing new direction of research. So I highly appreciated all the participants from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India to showcase their valuable research. We are enriched from their research. So I wish them all the best. So it was a very productive morning. So without further delay, I would like to bring an end to this session. And just one thing, lunch will be served at level 4, and I think CPD is going to organize the best papers, in their website some time around 5 p.m. local time. So thank you very much for your patience and for your kind attention. I wish you all the best.
So can we finish the session with a big clap? Thank you very much.